morning. Good morning. Well, this is setting a record. This is setting a record for microphones on a dais that I'm speaking at. It's a good thing I didn't have something to put down here. My job today is to welcome all of you to the renaming of this great pool to honor our great Vice President, or as we in Delaware know him as Joe. And he's Mr. Vice President everywhere else. This is, we couldn't have had a more magnificent day, and it's the sunshine, the blue sky, the gentle breeze, and the great sound of those fabulous children in the background. I just can't imagine anything better. Joe and I went to school together 100 years ago, and I always tell a story about me being, an old jock who went into the gym and played football and came back and always looking like crummy sweatpants and sweatshirts. And I'd go out and there'd be this guy all pressed out looking like he was going to interview for the great job, just in case it came by. That was Joe, And so I would always ask people, who is that guy? Oh, that's Joe Biden. He's going to be something someday. And who'd have thought though, I always get a kick out of thinking, Joe, who would have thought that 50 years fast forward, that I'd be mayor and I'd be introducing the Vice President of the United States. I mean, I just couldn't get my head around that, huh? Well, Joe, okay. Mr. Vice President, we're pleased to welcome you all here today for the commemoration of an event in your life when you did something that seemed rather unremarkable at that time. You're a lifeguard. You're a lifeguard here, and you're a lifeguard at a time when the world was changing, and the riots had just ended. And this was probably a more segregated public place than anybody would have imagined. Here you were there, and so people remember that, Mr. Vice President. They remember that fondly. You created great relationships back in those days, and you represented something to people that fast forward all these years, people still want to commemorate. And I know, Joe, it's not the Medal of Freedom, but, for people around here, it means every bit as much, if not more, because it's a gesture that is steeped in personal relationships and love. And so I'm pleased to play a small role by being here today. Rago told me that I'm on a strict schedule, so I can't extend this any more than necessary. So I'm here to start the festivities off by introducing Zanthia Oliver, who represents this district, who is the sponsor of the initiative to rename this pool. So Zanthia, why don't you come on up?
Thank you. Wow. Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the 3rd Council District. I am Zanthia Oliver. I have the privilege of representing the neighborhoods which surround this great park within the city system. On behalf of Wilmington City Council President Hanifa Shabazz, who could not be here today due to a conference, and my council colleagues in attendance, thank you for joining. Today we are here to dedicate this pool after a longtime champion of the residents on Wilmington's East Side, Riverside, and Northeast area, our friend, Vice President Joe Biden. I first met Joe Biden years ago when my brother Norman Oliver was Wilmington Democratic chairperson, and Vice President Biden brought Senator Bill Bradley here to Wilmington when he was running for president. And we walked throughout the South Bridge area and all in this area. I remember when Vice President Biden had sponsored a team when Storm is Classic. I think the team was called Biden Jammers, I'm not for sure. As a young man, he became familiar and developed a long-time friendship while in this area, while as a lifeguard in this swimming pool. In years following, he would be called upon those friends to help him make history, which he did in 1972 when he was elected United States Senate. I, like many of you, have heard him share his love and fondness of the community. I'm sure he'll share some of those reflections today. As our United States Senator, he helped transform this neighborhood, which was crime and blight and poverty that once was here. With his help, the City of Wilmington was awarded a HOPE 6 grant from the United States Department of Housing and Urban And nearly 20 years later, the village of Eastlake is a local, regional, and national award-winning model. And this is what we're looking at here today, which some of my family members live in. Mr. Vice President, welcome back to the 3rd District, and congratulations on today's dedication. You will always be a part of the fabric of our community. Thank you again. Oh, next I'd like to have Governor John Carney.
Thank you very much, Congresswoman Oliver. Thank you for your tremendous idea to rename this park after our former vice president, our long-term senator. As somebody who worked for then Senator Biden and somebody who's been a public official and an elected official, I've had the opportunity to hear more than one speech given by our vice president. And one of the ways that over his career that he's been able to connect with people and to make his points is by bringing it back to his personal experience. There are 2 stories that I remember that the vice president tells often about his commitment to civil rights. One involves his tenure here as a lifeguard at the Price is Run pool. The other is an encounter he had with one of the segregationist senators from the Deep South after one of the elections, when that senator asked him if he wanted to have the conference table in his office that was used by the segregationist senators to plan their plans for keeping segregation in our country. And Joe said to that United States senator, he said, "No, I don't think I want that." He said, "Because I came to the Senate to fight for civil rights, not to plan for segregation." And the senator responded, he said, "No, you don't understand. The civil rights movement did as much for white America as it did for black America. The civil rights movement did as much for white America as it did for black America. It freed us all from that racism and discrimination. We still have a lot to go." So naming this facility after our former vice president is a message to these young people and young people across our state and city about what Joe stood for and continues to stand for. I can't think of a better way to honor our Joe Biden, than to name this pool, which meant so much to him, which inspired him in a way that helped him change our country. It is an incredible tribute. I'm sure there'll be other things that we're going to name after Joe, including, we've already named the train station after him, but I'll bet you that there won't be anything more important to him. And I'm pretty sure there won't be anything more important to the young people and people of our state than to know that Joe's commitment to civil rights and changing our country and our state started right here with his employment as a lifeguard at this pool. And so, Joe, I'm happy to be here with you and all these people to thank you for what you've done for us. God bless. Sorry, I'm supposed to introduce the next speaker. I'm sorry, Senator Henry. I got to be nice to Senator Henry with 1 week to go in the legislative session. We got a budget we need to get passed. The state senator representing this district for so long does an unbelievable work for the people of our city and our state, Senator Margaret Rose Henry.
Good morning. Before I give my very brief remarks, I'd like to introduce colleagues who are here with us today from the Delaware General Assembly. We have Senator Robert Marshall, Senator, and my friends, Representative Helene Keeley. So, of course, I would like to formally welcome you to the 2nd Senatorial District, where hope lives and opportunities are embraced. Where hope lives and opportunities are embraced. You're going to hear many, many wonderful things today, but that's what I want you to remember. This is about hope, and this is why it's named for the Vice President. At this time, and I'm giving up my time to an awesome woman. Delaware always sends its best to Washington, as you all know. So it's my high honor to introduce our Congressman, Lisa Rochester.
Good morning.
Morning.
I am elated to be here. First of all, it's a pool. So I want to remember the pool. And the pool symbolizes so many things. It symbolizes Joe Biden because it's about family. It's about fun. It's also about some of the things that he fought for, like health and health care, which is one of the most important things that we're still fighting for today. Our mental health and our physical health. It also represents jobs, which was what he had when he was here. And I just want to share a little story that I read from your book. Because I looked at the pool and I didn't see a diving board, like one of these tall diving boards. So apparently our vice president as lifeguard had some tough guys that he was dealing with at the time. As a matter of fact, there were actually gangs that would come, and there was like a leader named Popcorn, right? Well, in the book, he says popcorn. Oh, we found, oh, Mouse corrected it. It's corn pop. Corn pop.
I said that in the book, too.
Okay, so he corrected it. So corn pop was diving off of that thing. He kept bouncing really hard and diving in. And our vice president said, you can't do that. And then he said, oh, you look like Esther Williams, who some of you know was a real big pool woman, you know, big in the movies. That was an insult. And so Corn Pop was going to pop this corn. Everybody was a little nervous about it. But what was special in reading that story was that it showed the kind of man that Joe Biden is. He wasn't afraid to be the only white lifeguard here. He wasn't afraid to step out of his comfort zone and get to know other people and know, about other cultures. But he also wasn't a person to step back. He never shied away. And that's what he did for us on all the different positions that he's had. And so to me, this pool is really representative of this man. A lot of times we name things to remember them. But this pool acts as an inspiration to us. He was basically saying stay woke before millennials were saying stay woke. And that's the situation we're in right now. And so this pool is a representation of you. We love you. We thank you so much for all of your service, all of the kids and their families. Hey kids. Hey. There you go. All the kids, we appreciate you. And it's actually in a park that's named after musicians. Clifford Brown. We also had Clifford Brown, Lynn Winchester, and Robert Burton. And to me, that's what you've done. You've made great music. You pull together diverse groups and you make great music. So we thank you so much for your service. And I'm sure the kids are looking forward to jumping in the pool. And I have the distinct honor of introducing someone who has also been a partner and champion with you in civil rights, head of our NAACP, a labor leader, and a good friend to our vice president. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce to you Mr. Richard Mouse Smith. Come on down.
Good evening, everybody. I'm here to put the record straight about this guy right here.
Don't tell him everything, Mouse.
The chair was right here. This chair was right here. This chair was right here. The pool and the diving pool was here. And we had way up 3 or 4 gangs over here. The Romans, Riverside, the park, and other gangs would come. And the Romans was like the oldest gang compared to everybody else. And Joe came in, and one thing they didn't like us doing was bouncing. on the diving board, especially the high diving board. But we was good. So everybody liked to play the dozens. So Joe heard us play the dozen. We used to talk about our moms, and you know how it was, Herman, and how this and that. So when Joe told Corn Pop to stop, don't bounce on the board, Joe used not only Esther, but he used some French language, okay? You know what I mean? Some French language, because Joe was good at using French language, okay? So Corn Pop, I think went on when the pool came out. So they start instigating Joe. They said, Joe, you're gonna get your A whipped. He's gonna cut you. He's gonna get his boys on you. You better not walk home tonight. Don't come back to the pool again, okay? Joe went to the manager who was controlling the pool, and he tried to ask the manager. And the manager told Joe, said, well, you better get some help, get the police or something. At the time, we wasn't scared of the police because we was breaking up the gangs. We just had a meeting on the Hill and about the black movement. Everybody was going to the movement of Malcolm, Martin, Gandhi, and Margaret Atwood, all of them. And we were stepping from one place to another place, into another life. And Joe got nervous, but he stood his ground. Corn Pop wasn't after him. Corn Pop put fear into him. Everybody else, Chop Smalley, Merk Wiggins, all of them put fear into him. And he, after years, he came up to me and said, what about Corn Pop? What about Corn Pop? I said, man, Corn Pop ain't one about you, but I was wrong. How many people can say when they do something, I'm wrong? Especially in a black neighborhood. That the neighborhood, this Barry took over this community because this community was Irish. All this was Irish. They had a skating ring, ice skating ring we couldn't go into. They had this pool we couldn't go into. But with Joe's help, as a public defender, as a county councilman, as a person that wasn't scared to walk the community, this pool changed. When Joe came here, it changed. Because we showed Joe that we could accept white people. We wasn't mad at white folks. We didn't have a racist bone in our body. We young folks that was trying to understand the movement of life. Took Joe by the hand, took him over Riverside. I told Joe, have a seat. I said, now, if a roach come on you, if you get a mayonnaise jar with some Kool-Aid in it, if the kids come up and sit in your lap, just smile and say, everything gonna be all right. Next thing I seen Joe at his new office, the independent with the insurance company. It was on the second, third floor. He said, come here, Mouse, come here, Mouse. I had a non-support problem. I didn't want to come here. I was great, get, you know, I get taken off for non-support. I said, Joe, I need some help with non-support. He said, look at my new desk. He said, look at my chairs. He said, look what I had accomplished. He said, but it's going to cost you for me to represent you.
Yeah, right.
We started laughing and stuff. And the next time I seen Joe was with Earl Lawkins, Mad Dog. And Joe tells the story, but Earl, who he was. And Joe was a hell of a public defender. But Joe came from here. And during the riots and stuff, a lot of us were getting locked up and doing crazy stuff. But Joe always been for right. Anita Hill. He took a stand. All women's, black women's, everything, he took a stand for y'all. I mean, women's wouldn't be where they're at today if Joe didn't tackle Clarence Carter. Okay? Look at the public defender office. He took a stand. Look at every time he came down Wilmington Dry Goods on the corner with his family. And he seen something wrong with me or certain people who jump out the car. Are you all right, Mouse? Every time he brought somebody in town, if he seen somebody he know black, he say, this is my friend. This guy should have been president of the United States. Okay? This guy need to run. He need to run to 220, okay? Because Joe understand black folks, poor folks, all folks. He's a human being that God gave him a gift, and the gift was to love people. He loved people. And he trained Bo the same way. He taught Bo was the most beautiful person in the world. When myself and Bo got together and Representative Potter, as Bo was getting sick, I had fixed it up so Bo could go to California, Texas, Wisconsin, South Carolina, Mississippi, to show him the concept of civil rights. NAACP loved Joe and his family. They all called me and said, won't he run, won't he run? But I can understand why he didn't run, because love's deeper than anything in the world. And Joe loved his family. And Joe loved his kids. And Joe loved me. Okay? And Joe changed me. Okay? And Joe saved my life. I was doing everything out there. I was one of those kids you all dealing with today. I didn't have no guns, but I had this real good. Okay? And I couldn't go on being the old mouse because everybody glued me with Joe Biden and his family. So I had to change. So Joe saved my life. Because if it wasn't Joe, I probably would be in jail for life. I'd probably been dead. I'd probably been in a wheelchair. I'd probably been a bum on the corner. But with Joe, spirit coming through me, I had to walk the straight line and be somebody. So let's not say everything in the world's racist, because Joe's an example that all people can get along. And Joe, I love you. And let me have this, please. I remember you telling me a story down to Ezon Mountain Carver when they gave you the Martin Luther King Award, and you stood in my arm, you hugged me, said, Mouse. You said, I didn't deserve this award, this award. He said, I haven't did nothing yet for the black community. He said, but they gave me the award. He said, now I got to go back and do something. So this is Martin Luther King, okay? This is the words, I have a dream. And my dream is this, that before you pass away, or I pass away, President Joseph H. Biden.
Mouse, thank you very, very much. Thank you. Can I, before we start, hey, all the kids, you want to come up here and listen? Come on up here. Come up behind me. Because I'm not holding up between them and the pool, man. Come on. My name's Joe Biden, Vice President Biden. Everybody come on up and stand with me. What's your name? There's okay, Cherry. Look, folks, I want to set the record straight in a couple things. I'll wait till everybody gets up here. Hi. You're on television, so be good. Okay? You are, yeah. See those television cameras?
Hi, Mommy. That's it.
All right. Can everybody be quiet for just a minute? You're on TV, so you got to be quiet a little bit. Folks, look, I've received, because of the people of the state of Delaware, I've received an awful lot of wonderful honors all my career. The greatest honor was serving you for so long. But this does mean more to me than anything that's happened. My daughter Ashley's with me. My daughter Ashley got her first job down here at Kingswood out of school. She runs, she's a social worker. Anyway, Bo is associated here. Anyway, the point I want to make is I owe you all. I owe this neighborhood. I learned so much. I was a kid from suburbia. I lived out in Mayfield in a split-level home with my grandpop living with us and in a 3-bedroom home with 4 kids, my grandpop. And folks, when it's a whole 100 years ago, but I was a senior in high school, and Przicki turned out to be a great athlete at the University of Delaware, but I was runner-up the state scoring championship here in football. I wasn't bad either. And but I wanted to get more involved. And I realized I lived in a neighborhood where I'd turn on the television and I'd see and listen to Dr. King and others. But I didn't know any black people. No, I really didn't. You didn't know any white people either. That's the truth. So I wanted to work here. And there's my daughter Ashley. Come on up here, Ash. And so what I did was I came down and I applied to the City of Wilmington for a job. And I was the only white employee here. And I learned so much. I learned so much. I learned that folks that I work with, like Spencer Henry and Lafayette Jackson and a whole range of people, Jamie Rolls, a lot of great people who were my fellow lifeguards. There were 13 of us. I learned that they treated me. They treated me as an equal. We used to go in what was not as modern as that. We used to go in the key room at lunchtime after a free swim and sit on the floor because it was nice and cool. And remember Boom Boom Cannon and a few other guys that worked here as well. And we'd sit there and we'd talk and they'd ask me questions because I really was the only white guy they really knew. And they'd ask me questions about everything, I mean, things that just startled me. I remember one time, I won't mention which lifeguard, said, "Do I have a jerry can, a 5-gallon can for gasoline?" And I said, "No, I don't." I said, "But what do you need it for?" He said, we're going down to see my grandmama in North Carolina. We can't stop at most gas stations. They won't let us stop at most gas stations. I learned a lot. And I learned that it makes a difference. This was the diving board area, and I was one of the guards, and there was a 3-meter board. And if you fell off sideways, you landed on the darn cement over there. And Corn Pop was a bad dude, and he ran a bunch of bad boys. And I did, and back in those days, to show how things have changed, one of the things you had to use, if you used pomade in your hair, you had to wear a bathing cap. And so he was up on the board, wouldn't listen to me. I said, "Hey, Esther, you, off the board, or I'll come up and drag you off." Well, he came off, and he said, "I'll meet you outside." My car, these were all public housing behind it. My car, there was a gate out here. I parked my car outside the gate. And he said, "I'll be waiting for you." He was waiting for 3 guys in straight razors. Not a joke. There was a guy named Bill Wright, Mouse, the only white guy, and he did all the pools. He was the mechanic. And I said, "What am I going to do?" He said, "Come down here in the basement where all the pool filter is. You know the chain, there used to be a chain that went across the deep end. And he cut off a 6-foot length of chain. He folded up, he said, "You walk out with that chain. And you walk to the car and say, 'You may cut me, man, but I'm going to wrap this chain around your head.'" I said, "You kidding me?" He said, "No, if you don't come back." And he was right. So I walked out with the chain. And I walked up to my car. And they had, in those days, you used to remember the straight razor. You'd bang them on the curb, get them rusty, put them in a rain barrel, get them rusty. And I looked at him, but I was smart then. I said, "First of all," I said, "when I tell you get off the board, you get off the board, and I'll kick you out again, but I shouldn't have called you Esther Williams. I apologize for that." I apologize, but I didn't know that apology was going to work. He said, you apologize to me? I said, I apologize for that, not for throwing you out, but I apologize for what I said. He said, okay, closed a straight razor and my heart began to beat again. I came down here because I remember the first bumper sticker I saw that made me aware when I was in law school. Proudly for Holloway. Proudly for your dad. First African-American state senator in the state of Delaware. Everything about. And by the way, you know, I sit on the stand and it get hot. I got hairy legs that turn blonde in the sun. And the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down so it was straight, and then watch the hair come back up again. They'd look at it. So I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping on my lap. And I've loved kids jumping on my lap. And I tell you what, the men, they're now all men, the guys I work with down here, and they're all guys at the time, they're all good men. Most of them made an awful lot of themselves. And Earl Larkin had a rough time. And some of you knew Earl. I came back as a public defender. I came back to Delaware and I got a fancy job with the oldest law firm in the state. But the city was burning. It was burning down here. And I couldn't do it. So I quit and became a public defender. And the first trial I had, I walked into court as a public defender with another guy named Eddie Sobosinski, a defender. I'd only been admitted to the bar 1 week. And Earl Larkin was in chains around his ankles and on his wrist, and they were chained together, so on a belt. And he said, who's going to try the Larkin case? I just got started. And he was aptly named. His name was Judge Stiftel. And he said, Sobosinski said, well, that's my colleague. He just joined the public defender's office. He said, will you in fact defend him? So he turned to Larkin and said, he'll defend you. I said, whoa, Your Honor. I know nothing about the case. He said, I'll give you till tomorrow, but you draw the jury today. And he looked at Larkin and he said, you mind if he represents you? And I'll never forget what he said. I learned a lot. He said, and I mean it sincerely. He looked at me and he said, one hunky's just as bad as any other. I'll take whoever you send me. And here's what I want to tell you about Earl. Here's what I want to tell you about the neighborhood and the heart. I defended him. He got beat up right on the other side of the field here. He walked along the tracks. He was a sailor in a sailor's uniform, the guy who he beat up and robbed. And so I thought he was innocent. I kept the jury out 5 hours, but they convicted him. And I felt so bad. So I go down to the old prison all the time. They had little wooden tables and two little chairs in a big dome you'd sit under where you'd be interviewed. And I was sitting there, Councilwoman, and the third time saying, I'm appealing this case. And finally he took the table and he flipped it up and he said, jumped up, and the guards came and grabbed him. He said, don't you understand, Joe? I did it. But here's the point. He cared about me. This is a man who saw me bleeding because I saw this guy going to jail and I thought he was innocent. There's character, even in great problems. There's so much character in this neighborhood. There was so much character back then, too. So many people didn't get a shot. So many people didn't get a shot who could be standing right where Lisa's standing today a lot earlier, could be standing where I'm standing today. Let me end by saying, I was a pretty darn good lifeguard. Yeah, man. I taught swimming, too. And I remember going over, we used to play the other pools, and we played basketball at lunchtime, remember? We went over to Riverside, we played. And someone on the other team threw the ball to me by accident. And they looked at me and said, oh, God, I thought you were on my team. I'm thinking, I'm the only white boy within 20 miles. Remember, I'd get invited down to Baby Grand. I walk in and say, who's this guy? And they say, he's ours. He's ours. You've always had my back. The neighborhood's always had my back. And God willing, I've always had your back. And I'll always have it as long as I'm around. I love you. It's a great honor. Thank you very much. And if I were still a lifeguard, I'd say, time to get in the pool. Thanks, everybody. And Councilwoman, thank you so, so much for this honor. Thank you. So how you guys doing? Who here is going to be president someday? Raise your hand. All right. I'll tell you one more story on the way out. You know what? There was a guy, when I first started, black folks weren't even allowed to vote very much, very easily. That's how long ago it was. And guess what I got to do? 8 years ago, I got to be in the Wilmington train station, looking over the 3rd Street Bridge that had been burned to the ground, most of it, thinking nothing was ever going to get any better 40 years ago, waiting for a black man to pick me up, to take me 124 miles to be sworn in as President and Vice President of the United States. That's progress. We can make more. God love you all. Put your hand.